most of the things I wanted to really talk about today, and somehow I got shoehorned into the starting your campaign, but really what I wanted to talk about was framing up the message. When you're talking to people, as you're announcing your campaign, letting people know you're a candidate, just some things to keep in mind. First thing, know what issues might come up. There was some discussion earlier about knowing why you want to run and what you're passionate about and letting that guide you into things. But if you're running for federal office, federal legislative office, you know that gay marriage, abortion, the economy, jobs, foreign policy, those things are going to come up. Better know what your answers are going to be when people bring those up and what your positions are. And you have to keep in mind your audience. And to me, a real bad example of how not to answer a question was in the Republican presidential debates when Ron Paul made a comment about just come home. He alienated a huge chunk of people in his party because he not have really explained that he didn't mean just tomorrow, march right home now, but to some kind of orderly process to undo all of that. I think that was a bad moment in his campaign. So you want to be cognizant of those kinds of things. So you need to know what you're going to say. Don't be afraid to be bold, but don't be mean-spirited. Don't be just against everything. Sometimes it's helpful just to acknowledge that maybe part of some position somewhere has the right idea, but they're approaching it the wrong way. It's okay to acknowledge that your opponents and you maybe want the same things. Everybody wants good schools, a healthy economy, full employment, all those sort of things. Everybody just might approach the solutions differently. And I think we've seen evidence maybe that the other two parties don't really have solutions that work. That's an advantage that you've got because you can point to that. As a libertarian, if you're running for a local or a state office, and you talk a lot about how we get a lot of flack for this, and sometimes it's deserved, sometimes it's not. But if you're talking about how you don't think fire and police and roads are legitimate functions of government, you're going to scare a lot of people. We can have those debates, we can have those discussions, but at the end of the day, for most people, you've closed them out right away. If you're going to go all the way from just trying to downsize government, trying to take a pragmatic approach to this, and you're going to go straight to, well, all the roads should be sold off and privatized, and no one's going to buy into that. So you want to be careful not to marginalize yourself with the message. And that also goes to, if you're going to make your core campaign issues, chemtrails, the 9/11 truth movement, all these things that, inappropriately or not, always going to get stuck aimed towards us, please don't run. Okay? It doesn't matter if you have videotaped footage of George W. Bush himself walking into World Trade Center 7 every night for the first 8 months of his campaign, personally carrying thermite bands to destroy support columns so that Cheney and bin Laden can, over tea, hit the trigger and knock. It doesn't matter. You have marginalized yourself in the eyes of the voters. And that hurts everybody. It's okay to have questions about these things. It's okay to say you have questions about some of these things. I think we've seen over time that, that 50 years down the road, there's things that are found out that maybe just no one knew at the time, that sort of stuff. It's okay to have those questions and things, but you have to be careful how you frame this stuff up in front of the voters, or you lose 95% of them right away. Even on something, the other benefit you have as a libertarian is that you have an opportunity to talk about things in ways that a lot of voters might not have never heard. I had a situation where I went to a neighborhood association meeting, and it was a lot of 40, 50-year-old women in particular in this one meeting, and some of them had never heard Libertarian before. And what's interesting is 3 candidates were invited to this, or should have known about it. I was the only one that showed up that night, which meant I got to talk for about the time all three of us combined would have been able to talk. We got to talk about a lot of things. I think we changed a couple of minds that night. So, those sort of things are important. Know what all these events are. Get out there amongst the voters. There's this great joke I've used a few times lately. I stole it from someone, but it's like, it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and your girlfriend or your wife's yelling, hey, come upstairs, go to bed, and all she hears back is, "I can't, someone is still wrong on the internet," you know, because they're down there typing. You know, a lot of us are guilty of that. You're not going to win an election sitting behind your computer screen. I think that's something for everyone to understand. And as libertarians, a lot of us lean very into that kind of logical, introverted, you know, sort of thinking inside our heads sort of personality. I'm guilty of this. It's tough to get out of that, but it's important. When thinking about issues that people may not have heard a correct solution to before, let's look at something like the marriage debate. You have folks on one side that say government should get in and regulate and define and structure marriage. You have folks on the other side that say they should legalize certain types of things. But I think mostly as libertarians, we look at it and go, well, wait a minute, why does government have any say-so in this? It's not one or the other, it's neither of those positions. A lot of people have not heard that argument before. So there's just different arguments, different ways we can frame things up that maybe folks haven't heard in the past. Again, if you talk about shutting down 90% of the government day one, might alienate some people. They're not going to take you seriously. We didn't get where we're at overnight. We're not going to get back overnight. When you're doing a press event, don't wear your sunglasses. And if you have a beard, make sure it's, you know, trimmed nice and neat, those sort of things. That's important. Voters want to see your eyes. You know, they want to, you know, if you got sunglasses on, for some reason, psychologically, amongst a lot of people, it seems shady to them, or you're hiding something. They want to be able to look you in the eye. Take people with you to things. Don't show up at events, at press things, at media things, by yourself. Show up with people. This is very important. Number one, it shows you've got supporters. But number two, you got people who can help you. If you can, get someone to drive you to these things. If you're running late, they can drop you off. You can go in. They can go park the car. Okay. One of the things that I found really helpful one day was, again, it was an NBC thing one Sunday morning, and I'm sitting there in my chair, and my coat jacket's all curled up around my neck, and I can't see it. I don't know that. Sam was sitting off to the side in the room with me, didn't know that, but I had 3 or 4 other people in the other room watching on a monitor, including Mr. Ed Angleton back there. And the next thing I know, I see Ed Angleton get escorted into the room, and he's standing behind the camera pointing to his collar, letting me know that I need to take care of that. That was extremely helpful. Extremely helpful. And so you want to have people there who can pay attention to those things, pay attention to the details. If you watch some of the other candidates, they always have people helping them, make sure their collar's right, everything's buttoned up nice. It's always important to understand that everything we do gets magnified because, at least for now, we are a smaller party. You know, when the Republicans run some guy who shows up at a Hitler birthday party, which happened, it's discounted. It's an odd, we've got all these congressmen, we've got all these people, that's just an odd event. And they can't make a lot of hay out of that. We've got to be a little more careful because it's a smaller group, at least for now. Like Mike said, it may be changing a little bit. Certainly we've seen the growth here across the state and locally in the party. So just be cognizant of what you're doing, what you're saying, how it represents all of us, and how it positions you in the minds of people who are actually going to go vote. Those are just really critical things. From don't forget resources like Facebook groups, meetup.com, being able to organize, keep people together, keep a list of people who contact your campaign so you can let them know when things are. Maybe they can show up, and you can have at some of these things you can have a presence so that you see that there's support for what you're doing. Be very careful when talking to the media. One last thing before I finish. I had a situation where I was being interviewed with a reporter for the Star, and I made a comment about a certain policy position, and the way it ended up getting presented in the paper was not as nuanced as I had presented it. I needed to be more careful in how I answered a certain question. Also keep in mind, anytime you're talking to the media, or you're going to get quoted in Star or whatever, don't expect them to use the best thing you said. Very often it won't be the best thing you said, it'll be the worst thing. It'll be cut, whatever. So you need to make sure you've got everything boiled down into sound bites, into things that you can say, talk about, present in ways that it benefits you if it happens to get used somewhere. So that's it.